This is a minefield of video that I'm just walking right into. But ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Adolfo-chan. Yes, a certain nasty person from the past during World War II that did horrible, horrible things has been reincarnated into a lolly. I think it's a lolly. It could just be a boy that looks like girlish or whatever, but that's besides the point. But yes, for those that missed it, here recently, a lot of news came out for Petals of Reincarnation, the anime adaptation. In the past, it was announced to have an anime adaptation. Here recently, High Dive has announced that they have licensed it, actually doing a co-pro on it, but they'll be obviously streaming it as well. But yes, it's going to be coming out in 2026. And with it sort of coming to the limelight again, I think previously when it was announced for an anime adaptation, it pretty much went under the radar. With it coming to limelight again, of course, a lot of people are spotting the fact that, yes, there's a certain character later in the series that is, in fact, a reincarnation of Adolfo. I'm saying that purposely weird because I am avoiding YouTube getting angry at me, so I'm going to call him Adolfo-chan from now on. It's purposely done that way, but either way. Yes, based on this potential controversy around this series, I decided to look into it, see if in fact that character is in the show or in the manga itself, if it will even be in the show and all that kind of stuff, which pretty much confirmed at this point, yes, unless they alter it in some way. But upon looking into it, I have my own opinions on the actual manga itself, this particular character, the potential controversy, and what I think is the bigger problem, which is I think this is going to be a production nightmare. But yes, let's get into what exactly is Petals of Reincarnation. It essentially opens up with this guy that has literally no talent. He's always been in the shadow of his brother for not having much talent. And at some point, he gets mixed up into a group of known as the Greats, which these are people that use these things known as branches in order to cut themselves. And when they cut themselves, they bring a past reincarnation to themselves. Our main girl here, she gets Musashi. Our main character, eventually, he gets Goemon. The Goemon, which is pretty much like the Robin Hood of Japan, pretty much. He's like a thief. But yes, upon doing this and awakening himself, he joins this group of greats, which will eventually go up against the group that is known as the sinners, which are groups of people that do the same thing, but instead of bringing great people upon themselves with great talent that did good things, or at least have some sort of heroics or whatever of their past, they bring bad people. They bring bad people. So yes, you do have Adolfo-chan, you have Pol Pot, you have Verdell, you have Hathcock, a lot of really horrible people that are part of the sinners group, and they all go and fight them. But yeah, that's basically the gist of the story so far, and yeah, it does sort of confirm the idea that yes, this certain individual is in fact this person. The idea that at some point, this girl or boy used this on themselves and brought back a reincarnation, and it ended up being, yes, Adolfo. It does sort of get in that little gray area there of like controversial subjects that I think a lot of people are going to probably debate over time, and again, I don't think this is really going to have much attention just based on the fact that it is on High Dive, but overall, I think that most people aren't going to care, or they're going to try to stir up some sort of problem, and I'm going to be here for it. I'm already here for it right now, just giving my opinion on the actual manga. I think reading the manga overall, it's not like they're really kind of glorifying it or getting really deep into it, because again, the idea here is that individuals that are using this cut are actually essentially just bringing talents mostly. With specifically Adolfo-chan, they're essentially getting the mastermind abilities. They're very clever in how they fight and everything like that, utilizing a lot of tactics and whatnot. With our main character using Goemon, it's not that he's going, oh my gosh, I'm Goemon. He's really kind of representing a lot of his skills. Yes, they do get in the idea of, like with our main girl here that is using Musashi, she does technically at some point allow herself to become a perfect returner, which is the idea that they're almost giving their entire self to becoming their past self. And that's where it's probably going to get in that really nasty area, or potentially very controversial area. So far, what I've read, it really hasn't gotten that far into it, and Adolfo wasn't really that prominent, but it could essentially get in the idea of, yes, questioning if you are your old self or your new self, and which is honestly the stuff that I actually am very intrigued by. I am the type, getting into the actual controversy itself, I am the type that I really feel like fiction is fiction and, you know, reality is reality. And you can really do whatever you want in writing. If it makes something that's offensive and people don't like it, they're just not going to read it. But I like whenever stories are okay with kind of getting into tough subjects and really kind of experimenting with them, because it both sort of puts a spotlight on what is bad, what is good, and it presents a really interesting question mark as to both redemptions and other things like that. Not to say that we want Adolfo to, you know, redeem themselves or anything like that, but I like to open the door to kind of explore those storytellings. I like that kind of stuff. And I think that's sort of what this does. It's similar to a lot of things like Fate Stay Night, and I think Drifters was getting a little bit in that as well, is the idea of bringing past individuals forward and exploring them in sort of fantastical ways. With Fate Stay Night, there's a lot of very nasty characters in that series as well, and they sort of do an interesting little twist with them. Like, I love how they twist the hell out of Nero's character in the Fate franchise. That stuff is very interesting for me, so I'm actually okay with this kind of stuff. But yeah, overall, it's not really getting too much into Adafu himself, and so I don't necessarily think that it should deserve that much controversy. And again, it's exploring a lot of different individuals. The entire thing is getting to, like I said earlier, Musashi, it's getting into Goemon. Like here we have a whole bunch of greats, and you have like, yeah, the Wright brothers, which are not technically the Wright brothers, they're the Wright sisters because they're sisters, and they brought the Wright brothers' reincarnation into themselves, and they're super thirsty at each other. So like, again, it's a goofy kind of twist to the whole thing that's very, very intriguing. You have Darwin, who has the ability to kind of evolve themselves. It kind of incorporates the lore and whatnot behind the individual, while also, you know, taking it to like a really fantastical level. With the Wright brothers, they're like manifesting, you know, wings and whatnot to fly around. They're not the real Wright brothers. With Schrodinger's cat, it's literally this concept this person's utilizing the theories behind that he created. This concept of like parallel realities and whatnot, and being able to choose which reality is the one that best fits them, the one that they don't die in, or the one that they actually hit their target. That kind of stuff. It's not the real stuff. This is all fiction. And that's the stuff that I love. I loved it with Fate, and I love it with this. The idea of really kind of mixing up the lore and just twisting it up. Yes, is Adolfo himself controversial? Yeah. Is it going to cause a lot of problems with actual licensing? Damn for sure. For damn sure, because again, there's a lot of symbols and whatnot there that I don't even want to show on my video because their eye literally makes the symbol. They're going to have a lot of problem with that, which I think is probably a perfect fit for High Dive, because I think Crunchyroll would have a lot of problems with licensing it because Crunchyroll likes to do global release. And unless the studio themselves and production decide to remove those symbols and a lot of the statements they may make, it's going to have problems with licensing in certain regions that literally the swastika alone is not allowed. So they're going to have a lot of problems there. High Dive is not going to be in a lot of those regions probably. So that's kind of that whole thing there. But either way, overall, it's an interesting concept, and it's probably, again, going to cause a lot of controversy, and I'm just really kind of getting ahead of it by discussing it here. But anyways, what do I think about the series overall? I think it's okay. It's not really that interesting. It is an interesting, again, very similar twist to something like Fate Stay Night, where instead of like actually summoning the individual there, these are actual people that are existing in modern times that are bringing past reincarnations into themselves. And again, there's a choice whether or not they want to fully allow that to take them over or not. And I think that's where it can really get in some interesting storytelling in the future. But from based on my, you know, like 20 or so chapters that I read, it's okay. I think its biggest weakness is the main character. He's very blah. He's very blah. He's very single track mind. All he cares about is trying to get talent. And he's been in the shadows so long. I empathize with him at first, like, oh man, this guy that has it rough. He's always been in shadows. I wish that he can get talent so he can show everybody and prove to his brother he's great. But he really quickly turns into kind of somebody that I don't like. Like, and he's not a likable person. He's just obsessed with this one thing, and he's willing to step on anybody. I know there's a lot of people that like that edginess. It didn't work for me. I'm not really liking him as a character. There's side characters that are okay, but he himself is just, There's a good twist that will come up possibly beyond the first core, maybe just before the first core ends. That could be interesting for a lot of people. It's a decent little rug pull. Something that's not really that shocking to me, but it's fine. But overall, I think it'll be an okay show in the end. The biggest problem the show has, and it's a big part of why I want to make this video, is I want to set expectations for people that are excited for this. I don't think it's going to be a good looking show. Like the PV here, they have some decent shots. This is probably the first like 3 or 4 episodes worth of content in here based on what you're showing with Vlad and everything. Beyond this, I think if even beyond this, probably during this time, I don't think it's going to look good. And that's mainly because the studio that's actually working on it, which is formerly known as Gaina. And Gaina here, all they've really worked on is Banban Vampire, which was not good looking. Grand Desert U, I'd never watched. Flaglia. There's not like really high production shows here, especially Banban Vampire was not a good looking show. But not only that, but they were actually bought up here recently. Back here, we see that Creators X, which is a very prominent, like, very focused on 3D CG, an AI technology company, bought them up and turned them into Ben 10. And so We have a very AI production animation focused company buying up a company that doesn't really do great works to make more anime, which leads me to believe that, yes, it was a recent buyout, but based on what they've probably produced with this anime so far, which is probably only like, again, 3 episodes worth, if even that, something that's releasing next year, I'm sure that a lot of the technologies and whatnot within Creators X is probably going to start kind of shifting into it. And even if not, even if Creators X wasn't involved soon enough with this production, again, the studio itself is not a great studio. And for those that know, based on the manga, it's a very action-heavy show that is going to have probably a lot of problems with look and visuals and whatnot based on this studio that just doesn't do great stuff. There's a lot of investments going into Creator X, but I think a lot of that stuff is mostly around AI, so that's not going to benefit it that much. But I would expect that mostly what you see in this trailer here is going to be the best of the best, and anything beyond this is probably not going to look that great. That's the biggest problem that I think overall the series has. Can the story itself carry that? Again, it depends on if you like the edgy boyness, the idea of a guy taking down anything to get what he wants, and yes, possibly turning on people in order to gain that stuff. A lot of people stabbing each other in the back in order to gain their own power and their own strengths. There's a lot of like morality stuff that's in there that I think could be interesting. And again, that a lot of that's facilitated by the fact that you have a lot of very horrible people in the past, like, Pol Pot and Rudel and yes, Adolfo-chan. The people that have really bad past that could potentially either, again, choose to accept their past self or to move forward on their own. Again, is this really themselves? I think that's kind of the question mark that I had for most of the time reading is, are they really that past self, or is this a tool to bring somebody else's spirit into them and they have their own agency? That was kind of a question mark that I had that I thought it could possibly explore. And yes, if potentially accepting that individual or becoming a new person, does that make you a bad person? That's also the big question mark, is there? Is Adolfo-chan, are they a bad person because of what would happen in the past? Or, again, is that even them? There was a moment at some point where somebody did criticize the main character for accepting a past and not choosing to have a new future. And again, that does sort of open the door to kind of explore those moralities. But either way, we'll see what happens when it starts to get more attention. And again, when the show comes around, if the show will even include the character, which I kind of question that again from a standpoint of global distribution, if they would even include the character. I'm sure they will. It'll probably, again, make a lot of difficulties in distributing certain areas. But anyway, that's what I thought of the show so far, the manga itself, and my thoughts on what potentially could be a production nightmare. I hope you guys found this video informative. If you did, hit the like button down below. If you like this content and want to more, become a member of the channel. Until next time, y'all take care.